So I have a problem with tank items. For a while now, tanks have been basically a no-show in League of Legends. All games consisting of either 4 hard carries and 1 support, or everyone just basically trying to kill each other. There's so much damage in the game, and as much fun as it is to blow someone up instantly, it's not fun to constantly be blown up instantly. And with the changes of ADC items recently, that's just pushed the game into an even higher damage game that just kind of sucks. No matter what you go, if you can blow someone up, you're basically useful. As upsetting as the tank meta was, I feel like we kind of just killed off tanks completely. It also looks like Riot's trying to do some kind of changes to tanks in the near future. Patch 9.7 actually has some changes going towards some tanks, along with that going towards tank runes. I'm not a huge fan of just directly giving tanks more damage, passively through either buffs to their runes or buffs to them in general. But I do like the idea of doing what we did with the support items and just revamping a bunch of them. Now, this is all my opinion, and I'm not a game designer. I look at these items and I see if I feel like they're good or not, which could be right, or it could be wrong. I don't know. But to me, there's basically 2 categories of tank items at the moment. Good and bad. Good tank items like Adaptive Helm, Deadman's Plate, and Righteous Glory, and bad tank items like Sunfire Cape, Ohmwrecker, and Warmogs. Now, when I mean bad, I don't necessarily mean a bad item, I mean bad as in not fun to use, or boring, or bad, as in the item. I mean, like Sunfire Cape. Sunfire Cape is just absolutely garbage. Bombi Cinder's great, and same with Cinderhulk. They're both pretty good. It's just the actual Sunfire Cape is pretty lackluster. So taking the whole bad category for tank items and revamping them to make them a little bit better would be pretty good. Make them fun like they did the support items, make them enjoyable to use, make them have synergy with one another, do things like that to make it more enjoyable to play as them, and more enjoyable to buy their items. Now, just because an item is good doesn't necessarily mean it's fun to use. Great example of that is Thornmail. Thornmail is really good for the game, kind of, but it serves a purpose. It serves a good purpose that I feel like we should have in the game. I fucking hate Sustain. It bothers me. Same with Spirit Visage. It's another boring item, but it does a good job at what it's supposed to do. So I have some changes that I would do if I had the ability to change some of the bad items for tanks in League of Legends. Again, these are not balanced, most likely overpowered, but their point is they're supposed to be fun, have synergy, and try and do something with tank items better than how we have them now. Synergy is such a good thing, and we gotta make it work, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, it sucks. First thing, I don't like how cheap tank items are. I want them to be up in the values department. Defensive stats are really useful. They are really cheap, and it's upsetting. I don't think it's justified that you get to have a very, very cheap road path for your items if you're getting dicked on in the early game. If you are winning and you can get those items to where now you're unkillable, that's one thing, but if you lose lane and you die 3 times, you shouldn't be able to get 1.5 items, and then now you just do everything you're supposed to do instantly. So if you bring up most of the cost of the tank items by 200 gold, that's at least 1,000 gold that you're adding on to the overall cost. Sprinkle it out throughout the tank items however you wish, just overall bringing them all up is what I would do. But getting into the actual items I'd change, I'd first look at Sunfire's Cape. Sunfire's Cape is boring. It's basically Thornmail, just minus the actual usefulness of the Grievous Wounds, there we go, of the Grievous Wounds passive, and the fact that you just need to stand next to them. It does pitiful damage after you get towards mid-game, and it's just basically nothing. So instead, why not change it, cool name, to Sunfire's Pulse? Same concept, you do damage around you to enemies, and you hurt them and things. But you do that damage only when you hard CC someone. Whenever you hard CC someone, you pulse with flames and dealing damage based on your max health to everybody every second for 3 seconds. This makes it more of a scaling item rather than something that's meant for the early game. It would still build out of Bombi Cinder, so you'd still have Bobby. Damn it, Bobby. It would still build out of Bombi Cinder, but instead of having it be just this useless passive later on, you can actually turn it into Sunfire Cape, Sunfire Pulse, when you actually want to have that extra pulse damage now. So that means you can just build that straight up for the laning phase, focus on a different item, then go back to it if you want to. Or whenever you want to, I should say. And since it does the % health damage every pulse, yours, not enemies, That means that you're going to be able to do some decent damage to everybody later on. The next item I'd like to look at would be Randuin's Omen. I don't like this item. I think it's boring. Don't get me wrong, the active's good. Everything about the item's good. But it's not really its own thing other than the crit reduction that it does. I mean, if I wanted an item that was armor and would also slow people, I could just go for Randuin's Omen. Or I can go for Deadman's Plate. But if I need the AoE slow, it's Randuin's Omen. Keep the crit reduction, keep all that good stuff that it already has, but just change its passive from an active effect to an actual passive effect. And this passive is a little weird one. Whenever you're hit by a critical strike, your next auto attack or single target ability stuns your target for 2.25 seconds, every half second for 1.5 seconds. It's a weird one, but I think it's a cool thing to have weird items in the game. Different things, do something, make a thing better, just do something different. Now this would mean that any person with a single target ability would have a stun. It's not a great stun, but it's a very annoying stun that still allows you to kind of do something if you get stunned by it. So if Malphite gets this item, he gets crit on, and his next Q or auto attack would then proc the stun, then you'd be stunning them every... A lot of different people would be able to use this, and I think it'd be a little bit better to keep that whole CCing kind of thing with most tanks. That also means support tanks could get it too, early. Reducing a lot of the crit damage that they'd be taking, because then they can rush Randuin's Omen, and also being able to stun people. Next item that Now we're going to talk about Ohmwrecker. This is a very weird change. Ohmwrecker is a very weird item, but I like the concept it has, where you can use it if you need a diving item. New passive would be, when you're hit by an auto attack from a turret, you slow that turret's auto attack speed by 25% for 3 seconds, passively. Now the active for it would be as followed. When used on a turret, that turret becomes your team's turret for the next 3 seconds, giving it increased attack speed by 50% and targeting champions you auto attack. Cool item, seems a little bit overpowered. I like it though, would be fun to use, and I think it'd be cool to be able to turn people's turrets against them. Kind of like Azir, except in an item, and also not something that needs to be dead, so not like Azir at all. But the concept's there. Not gonna lie, Warmogs was a little bit of a weird one that I thought to look at, because it's not a bad item, but it's also not a great item. It's just a boring item. Useful, but boring. I like the idea of tanks being kind of sustainy on their own items kind of thing. I like that, because then they're harder to kill. They do damage from their health, they do damage from their things like that, not their abilities. So, Warmogs having a new passive would be kind of cool, if we made it this. Whenever you slow an enemy, you steal 1.5% of your max health from them over the course of 3 seconds. And auto attacks would refresh the duration on that target. Again, another one that seems overpowered, but when you really think of it, the only thing that's really overpowered is the first 3 seconds. If you get a whole 5-man slow, you're leeching off 7.5% of your overall max health over 3 seconds. Not extremely overpowered. The refreshing on the target, though, is a really cool thing I like. Just being able to have more sustain and everything for tanks, to be able to live longer in fights, seems like a pretty decent thing. Also, it makes it to where that one AD item that has the whole, losing thing, I can't remember the name of it. Mortal Reminder, there we go. God, I never built that item. That would give more of a use to Mortal Reminder than having it be either Vladimir or another person on the enemy team who's full AD that needs to have some kind of, health mitigation thing. It makes it to where it's more useful. I don't really see this item much. I'd also change Frozen Heart. I don't like the passive overall slowy blah 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 from auto attacks just by being next to them. I think that's boring. Keeping that would be fine, just lowering it down to where it's not as good, to where you could give it another passive. When you get auto attacked, you slow the auto attacker's movement speed by a certain amount. Now that one's a really strong one. I don't know if I would ever actually go with it, but I like it. I like the idea of making it to where mobile people are less mobile if you need it for that comp. Because I'm really annoyed with mobile people that I can't kill because I'm just bad. Point being, I think that Frozen Heart is just a boring item. I feel like it should be changed, but also keeping the actual passive it currently has a little bit. It's just a weird item that's really good on specific people like Nasus. because my god, Wither slow, and that is very annoying. So just looking at that item in general, I don't like the boringness of it. I also have Abyssal Mask and Iceborne Gauntlet on my list of bad items. Abyssal Mask is, again, just boring. I feel like it should be changed to something else, even though it is useful. And Iceborne Gauntlet needs to be more of a tank item than Ezreal building it because he can abuse it. But that's all I got. That's everything. All the changes I could think of to change for these items that I personally don't like in the game, being how they are because they're just either boring or just bad. So yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and bye.